So we've just got one item on the workshop agenda, and this is the trail plan. Do you want to, how do you want to handle this? It was a reasonably short presentation. Are you going to go through it, or do you want to?
So Dave should do an intro, and then we're very open if you want. I can go through the presentation, or I can just give a 2-minute intro and work with the team.
Let's do intro, and then we'll throw it open.
Yeah, so I'll just do it very short. So I know you guys will know us, but for the benefit of online people, today we're the Parks Manager and Senior Parks Advisor, and Stephen Peters, one of our Parks officers. Now, Stephen, what we've got Stephen on here, has got expertise in a whole lot of mountain biking elements. He looks up to a lot of our trails and provides good insight about management and so forth. Just in terms of this piece of work, I just wanted to give you a bit of wider context. Just in the last 6 months of us at Parks team to really focus on some particular pieces of work, okay? And it's really been driving our work program. And that was driven by a lot of statutory elements related to the training, and that work is now completed. Point 360 have been one of the last ones. So that work is now completed, so we can now actually put some focus on this trail development plan. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of insight. Anyway, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi everyone. So I guess the purpose today is we wanted to give you a bit of visibility on the timing and process that we'll be going through to complete this trail plan. And hopefully you would have seen the little diagram in the presentation. But we're really keen to get a sense of direction from you guys to understand the level of engagement that you want to see being undertaken on this trail plan. Because ultimately this will come to you guys for a decision to approve or not. So I did just want to make a couple of points. We will be doing a certain level of engagement. You might have seen in the second to last slide as a given. That will be with whānaka, with the dog, the existing groups, I guess, who are currently operating on my island, both the recreation groups and those conservation groups. And that's actually required by the policies in the reserve management plan. The other point I'd like to make is we know that one of the big user groups are walkers, and they don't have a group as such who represent them, but the applicant, the Track Trust, have advised that they feel confident in pushing the use of walkers into the trail plan development. And so I guess I'll just come back to that question which I'd like to pose to you guys is, should we be doing an additional level of general engagement that goes beyond just specific groups who are operating within that island or the vibe? And I guess I put up there as a potential option would be a let's walk for 1 month. That's probably like a minimum level that would be considered if you wanted to do that wider engagement. So we don't have, we're not coming with a particular view, but just keen to get your community sense as a board.
What did you take from Ian's presentation at the public forum today that you set through?
I guess I took that they're keen for something to happen sooner rather than later in terms of trails actually happening on Mount Island. And I guess that's not something new. We've understood that since Council Port Mount Island. And I guess that they have done some of the work, which is great in terms of that ecological and landscape assessment. But I guess I would comment from a council perspective that there are still other considerations that will need to be taken into account, even if we move forward working to look at just a station trail.
Chris, what's your thoughts? You could have left one in the tin. Maybe for the rest of us.
I like the fact that we have the like-minded people that have done some of this work already. I think that's great. And that takes a little bit of development of us. With regards to going out and consulting, I think we run the risk of getting far too many people with far too many different ideas about what should be done and where and when. I think that the work that we've done with the management plan is sufficient that there shouldn't be any conflict between walkers and bikers and that sort of thing. And I also think that in terms of those that are going to be making the decision where tracks and trails will go are intelligent enough to make sure that they're put in the right place. with regards to consideration for all the other books. So if somebody's reading a book, communing with nature or climbing or whatever it happens to be, I think is sufficient intention from say the management plan for that sort of conflict not to happen. We spend a lot of time trying to get word right around getting the team conflict to all this support. And I think, I mean, Wānaka is a bunch of enthusiastic cyclists, so they don't want to be running down the track and falling into it either. I think there's enough planning and down really just don't need to go back out and say, what would you like to do? Run the risk of people getting specific about this track shouldn't go there, it should go there, or you end up just going backwards or going around in circles. And I think we should just, in terms of the desire to do something sooner rather than later, I think as long as we're getting informed of what it is that we're doing in the short term, and it does fit and integrate with what we think about in the long term, then maybe there is room for us to put something in place sooner rather than later, just to get that pent-up energy out of Wānaka sooner rather than later. So no, there are people I know that I talk to every week, they're saying, when can I go? When? And some are doing it already, obviously, but I think the more we can recognise that demand and just communicate with the wider community and say, at this point, we have done this and you can do that. Whether it's one trail or something that we've opened up. Almost see that as a trial, if you like, in terms of how well that works.
Thank you, Chris. John?
I think we need to ask ourselves what would be the purpose of additional engagement at this stage, given that we've had extensive engagement developing the resource management plan. Reserve management plan. That gave us approval or facilitates cycle tracks and walking tracks, new walking tracks as well, because there are new walking tracks will be proposed in here as well. Gives us that, facilitates those things. It also then gives assessment of it, so what needs to be done before these can be done. We've taken that now as a trail management plan. I don't see that we need, with the plan facilitates what we want to do. I don't see that we need to go back for further consultation below this point to come to an operational issue and that staff and need to work on. I don't think we need to open up this whole town works again. I think it would just be, I think as Chris said, we'll just step up and say, I don't want this track here, I don't want any tracks at all. We'll mitigating a discussion that we've already had extensively at the creation of the resource management plan. So I think we need to trust staff to come up and have limited consultation with interested parties. Possibly the Monday walking group might be a group to approach in terms of additional walking. The Tracks Trust is perceived to be a cycling trust, but it's not. All our tracks are shared tracks, and we have created some walking tracks, and we're in the process of developing some more walking tracks, so I do feel comfortable that the Tracks Trust can cover more than just cyclists in this process. But there are other groups, the Tramping Club, Walking Club, they will represent some other persons. So I really don't see that there is any point or any real value gained from further public notification of the trail plan. I think we trust council to work within the reserve management plan processes to get the desired outcome.
Cheers, John. Which is particularly because you're on here to Capital as well, so you need some additional excitement to the residual.
Yeah, certainly going through that process, gain a huge amount of community support. And I think, as a courtesy, we need to include all groups in a trail plan discussion and to give one particular group a perceived benefit by allowing them to use some of the existing trails and modify them before we go down the trail plan discussion, I think we could unravel some of that goodwill that we have established with our community. So I think as a courtesy we need to take a trail plan discussion to back the community, just for nothing else, to let them feel included in the process rather than be seen to be giving one particular group an advantage.
Thanks, Simon. I think there's a couple of big pieces of work that are yet to be done before we can actually be going to the public with a trails plan. I feel that iwi input is a critical aspect. I feel the landscape assessment of where this intended cut and pathway are going is also an essential big piece of work. And thirdly is actually somebody, and I know it might seem like we're just duplicating what we did with the public consultation, but actually being on the ground for a week or two and talking to the walkers, and actually, because, and that's really in my mind because it's come from the very high amount within the public consultation of people who were definitely adamant about new trails on Mount Iron and scarring on the mountain base, and concerns around ecology and concerns that the walkers, that there is a big conflict between the walkers and the cyclists. And I feel by just, again, I'd be supported with Barry's comment around one particular group being able to present. All the other groups should be able to, have that opportunity to present. But, I don't feel that the cultural elements have been inclusive, and I don't feel the landscape assessment's been very well included in the documents to date. And the third big one is your actual local people on the ground. Not somebody who comes here for 6 weeks and bikes and thinks that'd be fantastic to have close by. We've got Glenwood Bay, we've got another big mountain bike park being developed out towards Mātukituki. There's a lot of private bike parks, which I think, how many bike parks?
So that we can't relitigate the management plan allows for biking, we're not relitigating what we're talking about, it's time and putting trails on the, we can't sound like we're
missing within
relitigating.
that document is the consultation and landscape assessment, and we are trying to actually impose, going forward with the trail map that neither has been included in.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I don't know, I might almost be reading a different document than you, because it says October to December they're going to do ecological assessment, landscape assessment, cultural assessment. So all those things are going to be done. We haven't got the plan on the table yet. That's my understanding. We're just getting going on it. So I am the chair of the thing, listen to all the submissions. I just don't know, if we go to public consultation, full public consultation, what are we going to do with it? We've got a management plan that enables the shared use of Mount Iron, and we have got criteria in the plan for around the development of trails and tracks. Well, no, we're going to use one word, anyway. So I think we can push on with it. The way to keep the community is to keep people aware of the progress, on regular updates, and make sure we do include all the other user groups on the hill and any of the peripheral user groups. So I think what you've got laid out here is good, as long as we keep informing all the way through the progress to achieve a good outcome.
I also referenced Quentin's email that he sent to you as well, just to get something like that as well. We've just gone out, it's very fresh, we've just gone out for a mandate from the community through the RMP. The RMP was signed up, it specifically says that mountain biking is our own reserve. I think that community has been particularly patient over the last 3 years, and I think Bike Club has done a lot to try and restrain those individuals that wanted to really get out there and get out there. I think we should be an empowering entity. At the moment, I feel like we're being a restrictive entity around that. I feel there really needs to be some empowerment there. I admire the fact that as a community group, Wānaka has actually invested their own money, which I think is tens of thousands of dollars, of actually going out there and trying to make things happen. And they're doing that and they're coming back. I understand the communication between the Bike Club, which I'm not part of any longer, but I understand the Ewan, etc. That they are proactively wanting to communicate with you guys and bring you along on that journey. The difficulty with the trail plan at the moment is you're asking any user to predict what they might want to see on that mountain iron over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I think that is the difficulty that we are trying to map out and asking groups to put on there anything that they may want to develop at some point in time, because it feels like you've got one chance to develop the travel plan. And I think that's where the staged approach is far more pragmatic at the moment, to come in and to get some learnings from it, to do it into a particular area which is the reinstatement of low tracks. I've seen that trail plan. The conflict doesn't exist. I think we have to get rid of that word. There is more conflict in other parts of the network than there will be there. Okay? There is one part when it comes into the gate where there is obviously people on bikes and people walking have to go in and out the same gate area, but that's pretty much extensively where the main parts of any crossover between individuals would be. My point of view, we should be empowering. We should be learning from this exercise. We should be respectful to the intentions of the management plan, which specifically said that this should be allowed to happen. I'd encourage staff, and we know that it's very difficult with any consultation because they are very under-resourced and there's a lot of calls on their time. And to Ian's point, that could end up being a situation we're still waiting for feedback in 18 months' time. And there's just no clarity around there, and we know that because even around the RMP we push really hard to get feedback. So I think we just have to be really careful about some of those things that just continue to test the patients and the expectations of the community, and we could still be waiting here in a couple of years' time. So I'm supportive for just progressing forward and being pragmatic with a very discrete reinstatement of tracks as they said at the moment, and for a large group of the community that were heavily involved and heavily supportive of the RMP, having their wishes upheld.
I just wanted to clarify, I think one of the issues around conflict, like I said, was the perception that cyclists were riding up the existing walking tracks, and that was clearly not the intention, and it's clearly the purpose of this trail plan to clarify that that's not there. And I think that takes away a lot of potential conflict. That's the what I wanted to clarify.
What's the questions you might have back to us?
I guess I would be interested to discuss timing in terms of, you guys are talking about potentially a staged approach. But knowing that even a stage one, like we need to come back to this community board for any agreement, and that is unlikely to happen even before December. I guess I don't see there being a big difference between December and February in terms of delivering between a small amount and a whole trail plan. So I guess I would be interested to understand from you guys thinking about that, whether, I understand what you're saying about wanting to deliver and empower, whether doing a stage is worthwhile even for that short time.
There is no chance that you'll be able to put a full travel plan to the community board in February. That is impossible. And I know that you'll have seen the emails from David Howard, the chair of the Church Trust, saying this is not a priority, they just don't have the capacity at the moment, they're trying to do everything else. So that big walking group, well, that big group for those that choose to walk, they don't have the capacity to do that. We're really going to get full iwi consultation leading into Christmas to be able to put a paper together for February. That's the difficulty. I think it's aspirational for February, but it's not realistic. It's not realistic.
That's exactly what it is.
We're almost October. We're coming into Christmas where everything shuts down from effectively December to January. Put a paper together for February. So effectively, October and November to get this. It's not going to happen. I know, because those other organisations that you rely on just have not got the capacity and haven't given it the thought at the moment around that. So that's why the challenge is there. The challenge isn't, I don't see the difference between December and February. I think the challenge is the difference between activating something and then some indeterminable time frame when we can get all the rest of the consultation, or all the rest of that other aspects together for a wide. Now, this is also the double side that has invested in this, and it's a little bit on hindsight. It's what we're going to do one small part of reinstatement of tracks versus a whole. It's a big piece of work.
So we've kind of moved into the conversation that what we found this out building trail. What we came here today for was really asked about legal consultation. Okay. Cunningham and Barry maybe Maine of the speech maybe do a bit more, and does a bit more. But I've also heard that they do less. So I'm really looking for. We haven't got a clear steer from the board. Where are we leading?
There was 4 individuals that suggested to you that the reserve management plan and the feedback we got from that should be determined. Okay. So there's
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying
No,
I haven't quite got a clear steer.
Well, of course, well, you have. There's 4 that said kick on, and 2 that said let's go back out to go and do an engagement. And I don't think
And clarify that.
Well,
What I'm saying is that over here, it didn't sound like a clear steer.
Exactly, and I come back to the residents of the Hidden Hills area and the residents of other areas. I think it's been focused very much on the reserve management plan and the trails and that place. I feel, whether you call it community or wider community, I do feel, and you must know, Chris, that when this first started off, the negativity from that community, particularly the Hidden Hills community, was, they need to be engaged and communicated with, and I don't feel that it's appropriate to be going ahead without that discussion, as I don't feel it's appropriate. We've had how long to engage with iwi? And we're saying, no, well, they haven't come to the party, but actually, what's been that engagement process today? We don't know, and has it gone on over the 3 years that this has been discussed and the reserve, management plan of that reserve has been developed in that time? Has there been enough discussion? I don't know. I think, the landscape assessment is a really important part of that, to take to those communities to say, we've done this assessment, we've got this document, we've got all these groups that want to do this, and this is where we're going to start as stage 1. I don't feel we're there yet.
Yeah, you must have got me wrong. I don't support going out for full consultation.
You do with that?
I don't.
No, so I took that down.
You looked at me as all I'm saying is...
Can I clarify? What I took from you had a really good piece of feedback. You kind of said, I don't, but you described it as keep the community informed rather than and asking.
That's what I'm saying. That guy's going to respond to Linda. They're saying, okay, we've got to tell him the whole community what we're doing, but we don't have to, we go back to the consultation, they say we don't want you to do it, what are we going to do? We've already got a management plan saying we can do it. Okay. So, but we've got to keep them informed. We've got those guidelines to do it with all those criteria there, assessments and all that sort of thing. All I was saying was, yes, keep the communities informed of their progress.
So the reason we came back and asked about the level of consultation is because we're using you as a sense check of the community. We're looking for some votes, because we know that there's different views out in the community and everyone will be able to please everyone. So we're asking for a bit of a sense check and starting to get that.
Yeah, and that's what the whole hearing was for the management plan. We heard all that and we had to make a call. At some point you've got to make a call. But we put the call into that management plan, which I thought was a pretty good plan. That seems to be well accepted. Right. And now we action that plan. But we take the community with us by telling them how we're going to action, not asking them to tell us how to do it.
The Hidden Hills residents, there's the ones with the off Hidden Hills Drive, the entrance at Wānaka-Upper, and there's the other one on whatever they call it, 2 months of Northern Road, which is that one private road, if you like to call it. And given, there were 2 things that we did to mitigate that. One was that we decided that the only entrance to Mount Iron that was going to be out to the wider public was the one off the state highway. That's going to be always known as the entrance to Mount Iron. That was one of the things that the Hidden Hills we thought was a good part of mitigation, if you like, because people just wandering around using the side. And the other thing I think is that because bike bikers and anyone else who is local that wants to use the Hidden Hills entrance, the numbers of people will be significantly less than the people, or fewer than the people that will be going off the state highway. I think that was enough to keep them reasonably happy with the fact that they weren't going to be seen as the way to get to Mount Iron with a bike or on foot or whatever. I think those were the main things. And I think also that as part of this, as you said, we need to keep them informed. We told you this is that we were going to put cyclists on that line somewhere, and this is what we've come up with so far, and we just keep on adding to that. So, and not specifically the hill people, but the community in general. And then people can start looking at it and saying, hey, well, they did come to us in the early stages with consultation and asked us what we want. Nothing specific in terms of where these tracks or trails are that we're going to go, but this is as we move forward, and then the feedback will come naturally without us having to go out to consult. And there will be so many people who will be at either end of the desire that will go back to why did we not put it in the plan. I think we need to.
That's okay, but we haven't got a particular view on it. We're coming for a steer.
Yeah,
and kind of getting that out there, which is great. And one thing I've just really started to hear, and had to kind of pick at in lots of conversation, sort of feeling like we're kind of moving towards the do minimum element. I'm using the word minimum pretty loosely, but we really need to keep the community informed about what we're doing.
Yes, we should look at the
So is that what I'm...
Yes. Can I just ask, Okaha and Tami, which are our local sort of conduits for getting iwi feedback, did you manage to engage with them and get feedback during the RMP process?
We did engage with them and we did get feedback. I would acknowledge that that did take some time in the reserve management plan process. But what I would say is that that relationship is strengthened since. We meet with them monthly now and we talk about all things relevant, but that includes Mount Iron. They are very aware that the trail plan is coming to them. We've been signaling that for months now and about a trail plan as the way forward. And they are very aware that that will be coming to them in the next month or two. So that would be news to them. And they've already been thinking about what level of involvement they might want to have or what that would look like. So we have been kind of engaging in that for a long time now, since the reserve management plan.
Well, that's encouraging.
So are you asking a question around timing, about turnaround time?
No, I was just asking about the relationship. I knew at one stage, because Kat and I had a lot of feedback during the RMP process, like, we know where you're going to hear back from Wānaka and Tami, and it just seemed, it was challenging to get that feedback within the timeframes we had set with the community to go back up to the RMP, and I'm pleased to hear that maybe that could be shortened, or we will maybe get some form of priority or from there because of the relationship that's been built subsequently, which is good.
I can also add as well that on the ecological assessment, we are down the line in procuring someone to actually do that assessment with the intention that they would have done any further field work and assessment this spring that we would have a draft report by Christmas. And that would include an assessment of a draft trail plan in terms of a map and things.
And that will be that'll be the whole area, including the dock area that is yet to be transitioned.
Yes, and we've spoken with Dr. and very comfortable about that approach.
Okay, is there the local ecology company, is it E3 or somebody who's understanding the sector?
It's still in the process of moderation. But in terms of having local expertise was a consideration.
Excellent.
Have you got a bit of this idea, because this is a workshop, so there's no decision making?
No, it's no decision, but I feel like I appreciate the good conversation. We were just using you as a sense check. What we didn't want to do is not do something or do something that was out of step what you thought the community was expecting. So you've given us a bit of a steer there, even though there's some slightly different views. Okay. So I think we're adding out more of the do minimum, keep them informed of the progress that we're doing, rather than asking for further feedback. Yeah. And that basically based on that, we've done lots of consultation, we've had lots of feedback during the RMP process and things like that. So
Can I just add one thing that I think I'm hearing as well is to go beyond just what's people who are operating in the reserve, but we need to be speaking to those nearby community associations and groups as well, so we can absolutely do that.
So the minimum is definitely those statutory ones on the side.
Okay, I think if we this is a trail plan, we're not relitigating the RMP as well.
No, we've been
So-
clear on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've been very clear on that. That's,
So when you go wider, I mean, how wide do you actually then go again?
I was thinking more to see immediate people. And I think we've been clear as well that it's bringing them along. It's not, you know, re-litigating the decision that you're talking about, but it's keeping them aware of what we're doing and
Which is
where
the
we're
way
headed.
which we're
Yeah.
bringing people along with us, which we should be doing with everything a community board does. Yeah. So, very individual.
Yeah, the thing to me is, you know, now I'm has a huge amount of community support at the moment. And, you know, the reserve management plan is an overarching document. When we actually start civil work, or whatever you like to call it, if we don't bring the community along with us, we stand the risk of losing that goodwill that the reserve management plan has.
that word goodwill, you just mentioned and you gave us a feedback and it really stuck with me. I think we had drained a lot of goodwill in there and in the consultation. So that's, when I'm thinking about the do minimum, how do we retain that goodwill and how do we keep them informed about what we're doing so it's in line with all the feedback we've got. So just sort of work there.
I think maybe when we keep informed is what you did during the whole process in that time, is that monthly newsletter, this is where we are, this is what's happening. You're informing, you will get informed feedback, and when you start saying this is what we're doing, people will informally contact you, but we don't need to go through a formal consultation process. I think it's the last thing we need to do. But you will get informal feedback, and you can take as much or little notice of that as you see fit in the role that you're doing. But we don't say we don't need to re-educate people, just the whole thing.
Thanks. John?
Yeah, I think that might be update. That's great. And I think if we continue that sort of thing, say, this is where we're at, this is what we're proposing.
Isn't it continuing? Isn't it?
Oh, we've been going for a while.
It is, yeah, we just haven't had mine for a while,
That's good.
but it's on the list.
It's probably rather than the content because we're sort of, we've kind of done a lot of things, but you can see kind of being reinvigorated now with, so it wasn't because of the desire, it was more the content.
I think the other thing to make sure is that when we do communicate is that the trail plan is not necessarily going to be us sitting here drawing pretty lines and then go plonk and there's it done. Is that it is an ongoing process. I think we need to make sure that that is, well, it's a long-term project, so it's not quite as long as the point, but it is something that will develop at a time with feedback from the users as we go rather than the consultations per se. So,
I just want to add as well, that I'm very keen to see a couple of new walking tracks as part of that trail management plan. I mean, all this focus has been on guidance, but the trail management plan to walk as well. And I know the Trench Cluster's proposed 2 or 3 new walking tracks on there. So it's not just about cycling, it's about access and different methods of access.
That's where the assessment comes in for landscape, is critical, rather than just accepting the trail plan, is because the scarring of that actually is evident on the mountain, and I think there is a lot of community feedback that came in through the consultation period around the concerns of that visual aspect of Mount Iron being protected.
And that is why the plan talks about visual assessment, and that's part of the process developing that, so that has been dealt with. It's not, I'm not saying let's just do this, the plan is there to say this is what we'd like to do, and then it's going to be assessed by staff under the terms of the reserve management plan, which has been agreed.
Yeah, well, I think it needs to be a full landscape assessment as per the RMA, basically, that we'll want to have for the reserve management plan attached by a landscape architect rather than...
So that might be part of keeping people informed of the things that, keeping people of the things that happen.
On the journey.
Happen.
Yeah, on the journey.
Very good.